Here's a picture illustrating taste buds, these bumps on the tongue. Each one, there's a little hole to allow the chemicals to get in and reach the cells. And then we have the specialized cells that are sensitive to various chemical signals, able to say, hey, this stuff's good, or bleh, or whatever might be appropriate in the particular case. Smell, detection of chemicals around you. Very important in most animals. Mammals generally depend quite a lot on smell, but we don't as much. Birds also typically don't have that great a sense of smell. That's one of the things that a lot of them have reduced to be lighter weight for flying. One special category of smell sensing is detecting pheromones, chemicals that can easily spread in the environment, so they can be volatile, easily gassed for those of us living on land. And these chemicals can be detected by other individuals and interpreted as a signal. For example, your dog thinking that the local fire hydrant is a chat board to find out who's doing what in the area. It's detecting pheromones released by other dogs there and seeing what type of signal is left there. Now, of course, that signal is sometimes not completely reliable. One thing that is often done in situations like that is to put your signal high up to give the impression that you are big. And so little dogs tend to have the habit of trying to aim as high as possible when leaving their mark, trying to mislead other dogs into thinking somebody more impressive was there. Pheromones tend to be especially picked up by the vomeronasal organ. That's in the roof of the mouth. Humans don't have a whole lot there. Yeah, you can see ads in, say, Smithsonian magazine. Somebody claims to be selling human pheromones, but whether they really work, that's another question. I mean, they presumably work to make money off of people who want them, but whether they have any impression when you use whatever the chemical is they're selling. The vomeronasal sensory neurons are linked to a part of the brain called the hypothalamus, which is very involved in triggering hormones, connects into the endocrine system, which we'll look at before too long, but that is going to create responses to the pheromone in animals that have that well developed. Photoreception, light. Now, sometimes these are pretty simple. You may remember, for example, with the video with the planarian, those little eye spots. Planarian can tell over here is light, over here is dark. If I get in the dark, I can't be seen, so I can hide. That's about it. It's not seeing pictures. It's detecting light versus dark and maybe a little bit of movement there. To actually see something, make an image, you typically need a lens to focus the light. And also having a more complex brain to interpret this image. Curiously, there are certain cnidarians, such as some of the very dangerous, powerful sting box jellies, as well as some clams that have complex eyes with lenses, but don't actually have a brain. The cnidarians don't even have much in the way of ganglia. Clams at least do have some ganglia nerve concentrations, but clams basically have lost their head, so they don't have a brain. What do they do with all the data they're getting from these complex eyes? I'm not sure, but one thing, to some extent, they probably are getting more information that they can handle all the time. Box jellies are also some of the simplest animals that actually sleep. Perhaps that's partly resetting from all the information they get in from their complex eyes. Certain animals, primarily among the arthropods, have compound eyes. Lots of individual small eyes all together to form great big eyes. Often they have additional small eyes besides the two main compound eyes. So each of the eyes is detecting a little area, and the way an insect would see would probably look kind of like that, a mosaic of lots of individual tiny pieces. This is not the greatest for getting a good view of what something looks like. It is very sensitive for detecting motion. This is part of why it's hard to sneak up on a fly or cockroach to swat it. As you move, wait, one of my little eyes is seeing a bit of something that wasn't in it a moment ago. Something moved over there. Look out. They also have sensitive hairs that detect movement in the air that also help them know to run away from you. We have our eyes both pointed basically in the same direction, so there's a lot of overlap between what you see with one eye and what you see with the other. That's known as binocular vision, both eyes seeing the same things to a large extent. That is very helpful in judging depth and distance to things. The lens of the eye focuses. Of course, mine doesn't do so well, as now everything's blurry, but that is the function of the lens. And even blurry, well, at least I can tell that the room's there. I know not to crash into the desk, even if it looks a little fuzzy around the edges. We also have an iris that opens, closes to allow more or less light in. When it's bright out, closes down. We don't need as much light there. When it's dark, opens wide, changing the size of pupil. We have two major categories of light detecting structures, the rods and the cones. Rods are able to detect light relatively well, but it's light. What color is it? It's light. They don't detect what different colors are, but they do enable us to see when it's relatively dark. So at night, looking around, it's hard to tell what color things are in the dark, but at least you can kind of see things if there is some light. That's your rods. Cones require somewhat brighter light, but we have the different types of cones that detect different colors. So that's what gives us our color vision. Different types of cones sensitive to different wavelengths of light. So we have cones sensitive more to red, more to green, more to blue, and the relative signaling of those gives our mix of colors that we can see. In addition to vertebrates, there are some invertebrates with similarly complex, well-developed eyes. For example, cephalopods, things like octopus, squid, those, and certain others. Again, things that are very actively using their vision quite a lot. We do have some well-developed eyes in certain animals. So here's structure of eye. Again, we've got lens here to focus the light, iris controlling how big the pupil is, how much light gets in, additional protective layers and structures. And then back in the back here is where we have the light-sensitive cells detecting this, sending it on back with the nerve. We do have a little spot where the nerve comes in, that there's no light-detecting cell, and so there's a tiny blind spot, which is where you're not detecting light. Now your brain fills in, you don't notice a blind spot there, but if there's something right at that spot, you can't see it because the nerve is there rather than the sensory cell. Parts of your eye have somewhat more of the cones for detecting color. Near the middle, you have more of the rods for faint light out to the sides. So because of this, trying to see something that's very faint, you may actually be able to see a little better if you look a little to the side of it rather than straight on. This is used, for example, by astronomers looking through a telescope to see something very faint. Sometimes it helps to look a little to the side rather than straight on at it. Most mammals do not have great color vision. Humans and certain other primates do have 3 primary color vision, blue, green, and red sensitivity. But there are other animals that have more. Birds have up to 6. So to a bird, colored television would not look right. It does not have enough basic colors to match the way they see things. Okay, but we see not just blue, green, and red, but all sorts of colors combination. Well, the brain detects, okay, I'm getting this much signal from the blues, and this much from the reds, this much from the greens, so here's what color that's going to be from those different ones. Color blindness happens when you're missing a functional gene for one of these types of color-sensitive pigment. The most common form of color blindness occurs with a gene that's on the X chromosome, and so male humans and other mammals having only one X chromosome, if there's something wrong with that one copy of the gene, there's no other as a backup. And so that person or animal will be colorblind. So much more common in males. Females will be colorblind only if they inherit X chromosome from both parents that has a non-functioning gene for one of the key components of color vision.